up with my eyes wide shut. I ain't got to panic, push or rush. I'm in tune with the tune vibrations of the moon. I can see it in my soul, feel it in my gut. Wait, that's too deep. Let me tell you in too deep.
So cool, man. I just want to take it back a little bit, like really to the beginning. One of the things that you're most iconically known for is creating sounds with scratches, and the Transformer scratch. How did that come about? Like when did that happen? I know the song when Will talks about it. You know, just doing a cut, drop my microphone. You know, when did you come up with that yourself?
I don't ever like to take credit for stuff like that, because I think the one thing just with styles and certain things like that, it's always been a community thing. That somebody does something, you got to figure like somebody like Graham was a Theodore was the first person to scratch. We're all copying off of him. So you just take what he did and add your twist to this, and then you take what somebody else did and add your twist to that, and that's basically how it was. It got to a point that it was funny because I did something in the basement that sounded like that, and it was a friend of mine in the basement was like, yo, that sounds like when a transformer opens up. And what happened was then we go to the party, and Will is just kind of like, check out Jeff with the transformer scratch, and it just stuck. It just kept sticking. But all of that is just an interpretation of what you see and what you hear, and you putting your twist on it.
Was it a certain record that like made that sound? Do you remember what you were doing?
It's it's really it's scratching is three things. It's the signal going up and down in pitch, the signal going forward and backward, and the signal cutting on and off. That's all scratching is. And depending on those combinations and how you do it is what it is. So all it is me cutting something on and off and going forward and backwards. So that's all it is. It's, if anybody in the studio, a gate will close the sound off. Right. If you trigger the gate like this, it opens it up like that. And that's all that Crossfader is.
Now, in that time period, you guys being the first rap group ever to win a Grammy, I know at that time period, like, hip-hop was kind of, they were kind of showing y'all, like, their asses a little bit. You know what I mean? Even with, I understood there was, like, almost a talk of a boycott at one point because they weren't even going to televise you guys getting the award. Now, when it comes to winning, how you see how hip-hop now is the #1 genre in the world, you travel all the time, and so you see it. What do you think, I mean, from that time period where people kind of looking at you at the Grammy Awards, like, who are these guys, to realizing how global it is now, what is that like when you look at that, when you've traveled that journey?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. The first of anything gets the bad end of the stick. I don't think Kool Herc gets enough credit for being the godfather of hip-hop, because you are the one that opened the door. You opened the door for other people to come through. When Will and I were out, people weren't making $100,000 a show. You know what I mean? Like, right. We started hearing them numbers afterwards, and I was just kind of like, well, damn, what happened to us? Like, how you get people that are making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a show. You get somebody like Eminem who's making $2, $3, $4 million a show. That you're just kind of like, we were making $10,000 a show. Right. But we were also one of the people that opened the door. And that's, so to just watch, like I said, I just came back from Kenya. I was in Paris, I was in Malta. I'm in all of these places, and hip hop is what's bringing me there.
Right.
So you understand how global it is. You understand how big it is. And it's really the blessing of I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it and have the ability to appreciate it. I can appreciate the beginning as well as I can appreciate it now.
Let's talk about that Kenya trip. What was that trip like for you? Like, as an African American, did you feel any connections? I know
my God.
Dane put up a lot of stuff on Instagram.
Oh my God. Like from the first brother that greeted us in the airport who shakes your hand and says, welcome home. Like that almost moved you to tears.
Wow.
But just to see how warm the people are, to understand the amount of history, but also understand that it looked nothing like you thought it would. It wasn't anything like you thought it was. We all have a notion in our brain of how something is supposed to be and how something is.
Right.
And you don't know. Like, first time, before I went to California, I had friends that was just like, oh, they just walk down the street in bathing suits. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not like that.
Right.
It's you have to go to kind of experiences. So to kind of go to a place like that, and it was really one of them like, okay, I've never been here. I'm curious to see how am I going to approach this set. And I end up laughing because I never change the way that I approach it, no matter where I go.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, one of the biggest misconceptions is you kind of think, like it's almost kind of like, if I'm going to come to Philly, if I'm a DJ and I'm going to come to Philly and everybody wants me to come to Philly, the last thing I want you to do is play all of the Philly records.
Right.
I hear that all of the time. I want you to do you. Like, you mad when it's kind of like, you go to Australia and somebody comes in, it's like, man, I'm going to line up all of the Australian records and like, no, do you. So it's just like, I just aborted and was just like, I'm going to do me. But I went a little bit early and started to realize that they were playing Mary J. Blige album cuts and Mobb Deep cuts and Tribe Called Quest, and you kind of like, what? Mm-hmm. Oh, man. So, I was just like, I'm going all in. And that was probably one of the most energetic shows that I did.
Wow.
To just be able to kind of, play for them and, and the hospitality was, somebody was with us at all times, taking us around, showing us stuff. The food was incredible, had a chance to really sit down with about 15 to 20 of the top Kenyan DJs and just have a Q&A. They gave me a folder of music and just talked about it from their perspective, and they asked questions. Like, it was really good. I wanted to give them as much of me as I could and take as much of, the energy and their culture back too.
Now, we got a lot of things going on in America. From here, one thing Black Americans are always doing is struggling for position, struggling for a seat at the table. But when you go somewhere like Kenya, where everything you walk out, everything is Black owned, like, what was that like for you to just, you're driving around a city that all Black owned everything?
Well, I mean, some of the pearls everybody goes through, no matter where you are. It's just not as much of separation as it is here. Like, everybody kind of has similar to the same things. Like, there's no utopia that you're gonna go to and you're not gonna feel prejudice or
there's no Wakanda.
No, but you do feel the difference. It's unfortunately, I feel like right now we have this weird cloud over us that you can tell that we have it because for 30 days I didn't watch CNN, I didn't look at any of the stuff that was going on here, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it until I got back home, and then your news feed starts showing you all of the stuff, and you turn on the television and it starts showing you the same thing, basically with that cloud. So you definitely know that it's a difference, what's going on in the world compared to what's going on here.
Yeah. So an interesting thing I really wanted to ask you about was Will being on social media now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm talking in like a span of 3-4 months. This dude has become the king of Instagram.
He's the king.
Is that something that you saw a long time ago? Like, y'all been telling him, like, come
on,
man.
I've been telling him for years, like, you really need to get on. And he just, that wasn't really his thing.
Right.
But I'm like, listen, I know you. You're the most personable person I know. You're one of the smartest people I know. And you're one of the funniest. Like, this is made for you. And I was joking with him last week that I was like, I know this wasn't on purpose, but it probably was the most genius thing that you allowed everybody to use social media and you cleared everybody out the way and you just came right in and said, it's just me.
I feel like he came in at a time where it was like so much negativity that it was like, oh man, this is just so much positive.
It's a breath of air. Like, this is, if you know him, that's him all the time. He's always got, some kind of antidote. He's very reflective and looking at the situations of, just things that happen. He's always been like that. He's always been the person that he has an uncanny ability to look in someone's eyes and know, like this is the person who's too shy to say something.
Right.
That when I realize that, he's the one that reaches out and says, "Hey, what's up, man?" Right. I've always respected that. Like, I've watched him do that. I've watched him on the Fresh Prince invite people out to the set that I'm tripping because I'm like, yo, you changed his life. You completely changed his life. And you can change someone's life, with a moment. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't have to be, a lifetime of something. It could just be a moment. It could be an act of kindness. It could be a word. It could be a conversation. And he's always been good with that. So for him to be on a platform, like, it got to the point that I texted him and I was like, in all my time on social media, I have never seen something retweeted and reshared as much as some of the stuff that you putting up.
Crazy.
Like, it cracked people in the head because it was, it's just guidelines, it's tools, it's just,
This stuff about fear and just like all his, it's amazing. It's just like you said, you almost wonder where you've been at this whole time, but it might have just been the perfect time.
Yep, it was the time.
So speaking of Fresh Prince, I looked online and I know there was a lot of talks about a reunion and then bringing it back. Then I recently read something that they were very close to doing it with a female lead character. Like a Fresh Prince remake with a female lead character, but they scrapped it. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know nothing about that one.
Oh, okay. Now there was a lot. I have to find it, but there was.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you what's funny. Being in the middle of something, hearing all of the stories that are out there, like, it's really, really funny that you just kind of like, yo, y'all really just be making shit up. Like, hard. Like, I remember when Will went out to LA and was doing the show. Like, I remember the tabloids were like, just like, yo, Will stop production on the Fresh Prince to get his car clean. And I remember coming in screaming, and he was dying laughing because I was just like, that ain't happened. How they just gonna say this? And he's just like, yo, man, that's what they do out here.
Right.
That's, because I'm like, okay, people that lie, yeah, I saw Dom at the rib joint,
Right.
But when it's kind of like, I saw Dom at the rib joint with a dress on and he had something, you kind of like, yo, like, you didn't embellish it, you just made something up from scratch.
Yeah.
So it's really funny now when it's just kind of like, because you'll get to what Jeff said, like, no, Jeff didn't.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who you are.
Well, yeah, they had a lot of headlines saying that you were hinting about a reunion of the Fresh Prince. But
someone asked me about a reunion, and I was like, I don't know anything about that, and I doubt if that'll ever happen. And I watched that kind of get turned into that you just, and you just gotta laugh at it now.
The funniest thing I read was that they somebody asked you about you getting thrown out the house and how you had to stop doing that because your body was getting. They said your body was getting tore up from constantly going.
Listen, I did that maybe like 3 times, and I was like, y'all gonna have to use the old clip.
Repeat the same clip.
Yeah, I ain't signed up for the stuntman thing.
I hear that. So, fast forward, man, like, speaking of Will, and we all know Will's son, Jaden, but your son now just released an EP. Talk about that process. I know actually it's crazy because I think I interviewed you the first time on the phone like 3 years ago. And at that time, your son was in high school, and you told me, my son came to me and said he wants to rap, and I kind of told him, well, this is the process, this is what you're going to need to do. Now that he's here and arrived as an artist, I mean, what is the process of watching your own seed really
Let me tell you,
your footsteps?
I probably learn more from him than he learns from me.
Wow.
His work ethic, I know I kind of shaped a lot of that, but his process, like he has a process of, I'm not going to let all of the other stuff get in the way. It's kind of like, listen, if you're a photographer, you're a videographer, and you want to shoot something, you got an iPhone, shoot it. Don't make the excuse, oh, I need this camera, or I need this. A bunch of producers like, man, I need this drum machine, or I need this. Listen, whatever you got, if you can make something, don't let that be the excuse. You know, a piece of equipment doesn't make a song.
Right.
You know what I mean? So watching his process, watching him, you know, I'm gonna cut these vocals in my dorm room, in my closet.
Right.
Because fire engines keep going by in New York. You know, by any means necessary, he'll get it done. You know, and then you start to realize when you listening to this stuff, you know, how he pieces it together. You know, I may make beats for him. He puts all of his stuff together. You know, to the point that when it came down to working on my album, I the only thing I said to him is I said, I want you to put the same energy and effort in controlling the ship in my project that you do in yours. And there were a bunch of sessions that he was sitting in the seat giving Rhymefest and Dane direction. Like Fest came to me and was like, yo, he's running circles around us. He is so fast. His brain is so moving so fast in writing. We're fighting to keep up with him. You know, and you just, you know, it's first of all, you're never too old to learn.
Right.
I am the biggest soak up of knowledge person I know. So to watch him, there's been times that he's done projects or done songs and sent them to me, and I'm on the phone with him like, yo, what did you put on the vocals? Yo, how'd you do that? And he would tell me.
Right.
You know, so it's wild looking at your kid. Like, I'm not looking down at him. You know, I'm looking eye to eye with him.
Right.
Of him, you know, from a creative point of view.
Wow. So one of the I like to always try to listen, especially to lyrics. And one of the lyrics he had on your album that I found was interesting. It was, he said, "I've forgiven my father, focusing on the world more." Like, can you speak on that and what maybe he might have been talking about, or how that, you know, was something that's part of
Well, you know what's funny is, you know, my job keeps me on the road 160, 180 days out of the year. And he grew up with that, you know. So, of course, you turn around and you got friends who dad drives the bus and he comes home for dinner every night. And my job is completely different. You know, you go through the ups and downs. You know, I know it, but I don't know what that is for like a 10-year-old kid who's kind of like, yo, my dad's not going to be here for the play. You know, I hear you tell me that my dad is in London, but that doesn't always make up for it. You know, and I would always have conversations with him. We would always kind of talk about it. And I know you get some of it, and some of it you just don't get. But I think what happens is as you get older, and especially him following in the same path, he starts to get an understanding. And that, I think that happens with all of us, you know, on different levels. True. You know, your parents telling you to cut the lights out. And you go, man, why you on my back so much? That doesn't resonate until you pay your own electric bill.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start to realize, you know, a lot of the lessons that you give your kids aren't for right now. These are seeds that I'm planting that, you know, when the time comes, I just want you to reflect back to something that I said and a light bulb go off and it kind of helps you. Cool. So I think, you know, having that open dialogue that he has the ability to express that, you know, to go from that to he's on the opening song on the album.
Right.
You know, that's a giant circle for him.
Right.
Like it's super dope when he sends you the "I love you, Pop." You know, you a G. Like I only can imagine what he's going through in his head. Like we when, you know, I took him, he came over to the last show on the tour in Paris, and he performed in Paris, and we shot one of the videos in Paris, and we shot a scene that we were sitting at this cafe drinking coffee overlooking the Eiffel Tower. And it was a scene that we dapped each other up, that there was no words. And it was kind of like we dapped each other up, and you could almost see in the corner of his eye, in the corner of my eye, a teardrop. Because it was kind of like, how am I in Paris doing a video with my son? And he's kind of like, I get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all you really want.
Is it crazy to see how talented not only your son, a lot of people don't know your son is the actor on Disney Channel.
Yeah.
You know, he was on Girl Meets World for I think 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And he's even gonna got more stuff coming up. Just to see, I mean, both of you, your sons, like, I have to think like, can we get a Fresh Prince, Jazzy Jeff?
Well, you know,
times two?
I'm gonna tell you what was funny was I remember Jaden wanted Amir to come out to the house, and I drove Amir in L.A. I drove Amir out to Will's house, and I didn't even know if Will was home. And Will came in the studio and, hey, what's up? And we started talking, and we were just kind of like, how did I come over here not for you? This trip ain't had nothing to do with you. And he's like, yo, I built a studio in the house, and it's not my studio anymore. Like Jaden and Willow took over the studio. And we're just kind of sitting back like, yo, this is crazy. But you know what? They say the apple don't fall far from the tree, so.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do you see them ever collabing? Do they ever talk about creatively stuff?
You know what it is? They're in 2 different places. I definitely could see something happening.
It would be fire.
You know, yeah, because Jaden is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it's that would be crazy. What would be even crazier if it was Jaden and Amir and me and Will.
You're gonna break the internet.
I'm not. Yeah, that would be crazy.
You're gonna mess around, break the internet. So, how was it really on this album working with a legend like Rhymefest? I mean, we know everybody know Rhymefest. I mean, longtime Kanye West collaborator, writer, just hip hop. I almost see him like a hip hop. If it was a hip hop, you know, Mount Rushmore of writers, he would be in there.
Yeah.
What was it like working with him? And I know you probably been friends with him for a long time, but what made you really key him in for this album?
Well, Fess and I worked on the second album. Fess was on the Return of the Magnificent, and we've been friends for a really long time. Fess and I have an album 95% done for about the past 10 years, and we just never got over the top, which has a lot to do, like I said, with the being able to release stuff. And but it was kind of like on this installment, I wanted to reach back out to Fess. I wanted to kind of put something together. My working relationship with Fess is the closest to anyone that I've had to Will, just from a conceptual point of view. Fess is the type of person that I don't care what body of music I give him, he has something to it. It's not that, I'm not really feeling that. He's very much like, I believe that everything deserves a shot, and if we do it and it's not good, then we'll move on to the next one. But you know, his brain is always moving with collaborations and just things like that. So once we kind of sat down, you know, it was like, okay, Fess was the old, you know, my old collaborator.
Right.
And Dane is my present day, you know, road dog and collaborator, and Amir's the future.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of got to the point that I, you know,
and
sitting down.
Trinity, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like, yo, I want, because all 3 of them are lyricists.
Right.
You know, and we're in a time that lyricism isn't at the top. But I'm also understanding that things go in cycles. And like, it's kind of like, I'll look at, there are DJ routines that I've been doing for 30 years. That if I do in front of this generation, they go completely nuts.
Right.
Because they never seen it before. And you're kind of like, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. But it's like, oh, you've never seen it. People haven't seen, this generation hasn't seen MCs go back and forth like they did. We have, because we've seen that before. You've seen that with De La Soul. You've seen that with other groups. But people today haven't. That I'm kind of like, yo, so what happens when you do the track that they listen to and put that level of lyricism on? You're doing something that this generation has not seen.
Right.
And that was really the approach, that it was kind of like, yo, you got 3 different generations of MCs that all have lyrics. What happens when you put it from everybody's perspectives?
Right.
Fess is not acting like he's not 40. Dane is not acting like he's not 28. And Amir's not acting like he's not 19.
Right.
Like, be that, but be 3 different generations. And that was the approach in going into this album.
Solid. So, you know, I only have a few more questions for you. One of them, really, I just wanted to do for since you from Delaware, or you live in Delaware now,
Mm-hmm.
not from Delaware, but you know, one of my jobs here is to really put on for the local artists here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could give Delaware artists from a small state like this any advice on how they need to get themselves heard outside of Delaware, what would you say are the maybe top 3 key components to that?
Well, it's a little bit different now. And I tell people, the advice that I would have gave 10 years ago is not the advice that you give today.
Right.
Everybody has the exact same advantage. Delaware is not at a disadvantage ever again because of social media. It does not matter where you're from anymore. So you have to get that out of the way. What it really comes down to is your content. You need to show people. Listen, you can be from Arkansas. If you dope, you're dope. Like, stop worrying about where you from and put energy into your craft. Because once you do that, that's how you people talk about putting their area on. The only way you can do that is you have to be dope. Mm-hmm. You can't just be, New York is the Mecca. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of whack ass artists from New York. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Like, you need to be dope first and foremost. Like, that's really what it is. You are not. Everybody's been crying about this disadvantage of where they are. Like, I know artists from London that were like, I gotta move to the States. Why? For what? What's the difference over there and there? You know what I mean? Like, cultivate your local scene. Get to know your local artists. Collaborate. Instead of be hating on each other, y'all need to kind of band together and figure out who does what, how we can do that, how we can work on something together. You got a following, he's got a following. You know what happens? Let me give you my following and you give me your following, so now that we both have double the amount of people and double the amount of exposure.
I think that's one thing Delaware artists don't really see a lot of times. Is everybody, if you could talk about the importance of realizing whose projects we should push in time frames. Because I almost feel like Delaware artists should be able to get together and be like, all right, this person's hot right now. We should all support this. And
well, you know what I say about that? That's not just Delaware. That's everywhere. That's not a Delaware thing. That's an everywhere thing. That you just got to get to a point that we live in the era that everybody's got a laptop. Everybody's got Fruity Loops. Everybody's trying to do it themselves. No one has a community studio anymore. Everybody got their own studio.
Right.
Like, I came up in the era that we had a meeting place that we all kind of came and we all kind of build and shared ideas. When you are tucked into your own cubbyhole, you think it's 100% about you. And that is one of the biggest, to me, that is one of the biggest detriments to our music today. That there's no collaboration. You digging through all these old records, pick me up a record of somebody who did it by themselves. Like, everything was a collaboration.
Right.
Like, unless you find a group of people that come on, man, let's help each other. Let's figure it out. You can be an individual. Ain't nobody saying that you got to be a group. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, I need somebody that I can bounce ideas off. I need you to bounce ideas off. I need somebody that I want to collaborate on this. How can I do this? It's really building the community, I think, is what strengthens everybody. And listen, if it's somebody that's the heavy, if it's somebody that's pushing right now, he's got to reach back and you got to reach up.
Perfect. Last couple questions for you. So I need you, man, legendary DJ. Give me your top 5 rappers that are alive. No,
can't do it. Top 5
Greg
rappers.
told me I had to ask this question.
Top 5 rappers.
Yep. Top 5, dead or alive. Your favorite, personal.
I personally feel that Melly Mel is the greatest rapper of all time.
So you put him at 1.
I'm going to put him beyond 1.
Right.
And I'm going to say this. Name me one rapper today that could write the message. That was the greatest rap record of all time. You look at the date when it was written, you listen to what he was saying, you can't write that now. He's the greatest rapper of all time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's a time. It's a time era.
Frame, right?
You know, it all depends. Then there are people that are kind of like, wow, this guy made the best records in the world, but this guy had the best freestyles in the world.
Right.
Which one do you hold more weight to? Do you hold the guy who's got the greatest lyrics? Rakim has always been on the top of my list. You've never heard Rakim say a curse word.
Right.
That's very hard for rappers to do now.
Yeah.
That everybody falls back on the curse word. Rakim said the most profound stuff using the simplest words. He didn't use a lot of words. He wasn't very wordy. He just chose his words very carefully. You know, somebody like Big Daddy Kane had punchlines and metaphors and styles and flows. He didn't just have one. It's like I can switch my stuff up.
Right.
You know, and then I'm going back to, you know, that level, the
right.
KRS. You know, you don't want to step on the stage with somebody like KRS. But then you turn around and it's kind of like you can't take anything away from Black Thought. Black Thought might be one of the greatest lyricists of all time.
Yeah.
May not have the best records of all time, but you know what's your criteria?
Freestyle and then
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I personally felt that To Pimp a Butterfly could have easily been the greatest rap record I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
And that's from a new guy
Right.
who completely said, okay, y'all doing this, I'm over here. You know, so it's hard for me to just pick 5 because I don't have a basis of, you know, what I'm judging it on.
How'd you feel about that J. Cole record and how he just addressed
I loved it.
addiction, you know, amongst the
Well, you know what? Like, what I love about J. Cole is in a time that, and it's funny, like J. Cole and Kendrick, at a time when everybody got 99,000 features, they take it back to a time of you want me, I'm gonna give you me. I don't need, and it's not that I wouldn't do it. You know, I don't need help. I don't need 97 people on this one song to kind of make it special.
Right.
You know, and you start to feel like, you know, you can listen to someone's album and you kind of like, yo, I didn't listen to 10 songs. And if I counted just your lyrical content, you might have gave me 1.2 songs because you got so many people on here. Like, what did you do?
Word. So, you know, just to really, you know, bring this all together, what should we see in the future? You got M3 now. What else you got planned coming up?
You know what's funny? I don't have this thing of, well, I'm trying to do it this and I'm trying to do it this. I'm extremely simple. I love the fact that I can travel the world and DJ. I love the fact that I can put out music myself. I can put out music with other people. I can produce music. I'm not trying to change shit. I'm trying to do exactly what I'm doing right now for the next 50 years. Like I don't need anything extra. Like everybody, you know what I mean? I'm not one of them people like you need to be the best. I ain't gotta be the best. I'm cool.
And how instrumental is your family and your wife, Lynette? I know she seems to just, like, you always call her the glue.
That's it.
You know what I mean? Like, how important is just having that family unit since you travel so much?
Well, you need that. You need that. You know what I mean? It's I joke that I got married later in life, because when you think of all of the pearls and all of the things that the music industry puts on you, and you know us talking about the mental health aspect of what's going on with people now, I might not have been able to sustain a healthy relationship, you know, at that point in time. That, you know, I needed to figure out how I'm navigating with this, you know, so that everything else in my life could kind of fall into place. So I think it was a purpose, but there's absolutely nothing like having somebody in the family business. You know, having somebody that, you know, my life goes from 100 miles an hour to 0, and I enjoy them both. But you know, it's just, you know, I can't describe what it's like to, you know, have the partner that kind of understands it. And I've always said, for people who are single and you're looking for somebody, marry somebody smarter than you. Like, you have no idea. To have someone that can teach you, first of all, you have to have a level of humility to get to a point to say, I want someone smarter than me.
That's the key.
But it's just, what it is it's a never-ending cycle of knowledge that I love giving her an idea and she giving me a different perspective. Like, half of the stuff that I'm doing from, playlists and all the rest of that would not happen without her. Like, I'm the person that she always says, like, you're so much of a creative. I invite 20 people here to make music. I'm never thinking about food. Everybody in here is starving to death.
Right.
And she's like, yo, did you order something to eat? And I'm looking like, no. Because I'm like, yo, we don't have to eat. She's like, you don't have to eat. So she's the person that does all of the detail stuff.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna let you be creative, but I'm gonna handle all of the logistical stuff. And that just makes it work.
Perfect, man. Magnificent DJ Jazzy Jeff, man. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Here we go. We good, man.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Cool.
Waking up with my eyes wide shut, I ain't gotta panic, push or rush. I'm in tune with the tune vibrations of the moon. I can see it in my soul, feel it in my gut. Wait, that's too deep.